Following on from our hugely successful blog on how large should my IT team be, I'm sitting down with Danny Broadhurst from Microbyte to discuss exactly that topic. And we're going to get to the bottom of how you figure out how large your IT team needs to be. Danny, welcome.
Hi.
You see, I've talked about this subject quite a lot. When we're discussing with prospects, we're often trying to persuade them to think about why they shouldn't take on in-house IT people when they can outsource it and use an MSP.
Mm-hmm.
But this blog seems to get so much attention because I think it comes to the crux of the matter, which is how do you decide how many people you need in IT? And that's why I thought we should have a little discussion about that, because you obviously do work for those very same customers that we win who are asking those questions.
Yeah, it's a very good question actually, and I think it all depends on many factors, but the key one is your infrastructure and the applications that you use internally. So you could have most companies nowadays are a lot more cloud focused and cloud based, so the need for on-site infrastructure is a lot less. So having that on-site presence it's not very needed anymore.
No.
You can rely on your third parties to be your mechanic, I suppose,
Yes.
in a way, and they can be available 24 hours. You haven't got the costs that are associated with having on-site IT. But you get your enterprises, you get your bigger companies that are hundreds of people, and they
Yeah.
have bespoke software, or they have things like AutoCAD Vault, for example, they need servers on site, and that's where you'll need kind of that person that can be there.
Yeah. So, I mean, let me put you on the spot. Sort of turn the tables a little bit, but 20-man business, completely cloud born in the last 10 years. They're growing at a good rate, but they're happy doing what they're doing. Do they need an in-house IT person or team?
No, I don't think they do need an in-house IT team, because you've got a lot of overheads with in-house IT. You've not only got the cost of the staff member itself, you've got the reliability of them maybe not calling in one day or being off sick, and then you've got no one. So having that single person is a point of failure. Having outsourcing to an MSP, you've got a lot more flexibility. You've got staff always available. You've got cover all hours if you have the out-of-hours service. So you've got the 24/7 cover, including on Christmas. So it's a lot better to outsource. It's cost saving, but also you've got that peace of mind that you've always got someone available.
So what we're really saying is, for those SMEs right now, if they're a newish business, as in we'll say the last 10 years, they will be probably built on all the latest technology anyway. And so the requirement to have someone in-house full-time is probably not there, because the emergencies will be few and far between, right? Because they haven't got AutoCAD Vault, they haven't got a production line. There's not loads and loads of moving parts. But notching it up then, let's talk a little bit about larger companies. So let's say you've got 100, 200 computer users. You do have a production line. You are in manufacturing. You do have people out in the field. How do we determine what size team they need?
It all depends on their response and what they need from an engineer or an IT person. You can have people that need, they've got a production line that's running. If that production line stops for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, they're losing hundreds of thousands of pounds, sometimes millions of pounds. So to have someone that can be on site and can quickly run down, maybe put a temporary PC in place, or help someone on the other end that's maybe a bit more experienced, talk them through doing the physical aspects of what may be needed. I think that's where you can have really big benefits. So having someone on site is when you've got that point of failure that can actually cost you a lot of money.
That requirement to get something fixed physically straight away, that's where you need to be thinking about building out those teams. So if we had to do a bit of a rule of thumb, is it safe to say that unless there is something physical on site that's being created or fabricated or melded, whatever it is, there probably isn't that need for somebody actually in-house, but they're placed there more as a comfort thing because of legacy ways of doing business. So that's probably quite a good way to surmise that. But let's take a more eclectic example then. So my business, again, 10, 20 people. How do I know what the IT requirement is? So I want people in-house on my IT, no matter what. I'm just one of those companies, and we've come across those sorts of owners, right? How do we let them know how they're going to go from one IT person to two? Because there has to be a formula, right? I'm reminded of one of the formulas we use in-house, but is there anything you can sort of speak to how to make that definition on support when you need new people?
It's a very good question. And again, I go back a little bit towards the nature of the business, what potential impact it would have on the business. But also, I think, is maybe going back to the start and really identifying what their IT needs are.
Yeah.
And starting from scratch with them, because the chances are, if they've had a one-man band for quite some time, they've just kind of got by.
Yeah.
And they've struggled, and maybe they don't really know what they need. And maybe that needs to be kind of revisited on a higher level, more of an operational side of things. Of, okay, well, let's look at your IT and let's see what would happen in this scenario.
Don't be afraid to pick apart
Exactly
what it is you're using IT for. Don't just slap people on because you think you're busy or the IT team say they're busy.
100%. It's just a band-aid. It's just a temporary fix, because you feel adding these people is actually going to fix what you feel is a problem. And realistically, the problem isn't the need for more people, it's maybe the operational and how the IT works, and maybe there's a better way of achieving what you want.
Does that translate actually in some way to how MSPs should be also scaling up, or IT companies should be scaling up their own staff? Because, I mean, we use REM. We love that. Gary Peaker's famous formula, reactive hours per endpoint per month. So basically the number of people that are raising support calls and the average time those support calls are taking. Is it as simple as saying, okay, in this last 30 days, we've had this many support calls, each one's taken about this amount of time? That's how you're going to know when you're at the next stage and you need another IT person.
In theory, yes. It is quite that simple. You look at your volume of calls, your volume of tickets, and you work on an average of, okay, let's say tickets are taking an engineer between 20 and 30 minutes per ticket. You do get complicated tickets that could take you an hour and a half, and you get some that are 10 minutes because it's a quick password reset.
But that's the bell curve, isn't it? You ignore the 1 minute tickets, you ignore the 10-hour tickets.
And you kind of find that average, and you find out if it's taking an engineer on average 30 minutes to do a ticket, and then we've got, say, 100 tickets coming in a day, how many engineers do you need to try and fill that gap? And then you've got the call volumes as well, which are not always a ticket, but sometimes you've got that 10-15 minute phone call as well. So,
but I'm being honest about engineer efficiency. Like, you're not going to get 8 hours a day out of somebody.
No.
You're probably going to get 6 or even 5.
Correct.
But that is part and parcel of the game, and you need to factor that in to every new person you take on. And HR departments probably need to be well aware of that on the flip side, so that, rather than just saying, well, you've had another tech member of the team. Yes, but that was never going to be enough because we had 100 tickets come in a week.
Exactly,
Each would take in 45 minutes. What do you expect us to do?
Yeah. What are the factors you feel IT teams need to consider when deciding how big their teams need to be?
So, from experience of going through businesses of all sizes over the last, 20 years, I would say the first thing is to remove panic from your decision making. You said this earlier. Don't make a knee-jerk reaction that just because something feels busy, it is busy. We know from all the research out there that 60% of work that gets done in companies could be more efficient, or is work that's not being done very well in the first place. There's too much research out there to suggest. So the worst thing you can do is panic buy an engineer. The second thing is to consider that outsourcing it could be the best option, because an outsourced IT company are like an aggregator of all of this work. They've almost got the resources there, and then they're queuing up the work to get all of that done. When you have got an in-house resource, or you're about to take on a new one, you need to factor in the management time, the reviews, the holidays, the lunches, the training. There's all of those sorts of things to consider. So The second point is really don't take on somebody thinking it's just going to fix your problem straight away. The I think the final part to sort of wrap that up is the complexity of your business. If you are a cloud born company or a company born in the last 10 years, the technologies you use are highly unlikely to be not supportable easily by an outsourced company. So you should definitely explore that first, because no matter what it's going to cost you to outsource that, there is no way it is more than bringing someone in house to do that. To answer the question around how enterprises or larger companies should deal with that sort of scaling, build metrics for your IT departments and make them stick to it. So if you've got developers, you treat that development resource as what it is. It is not a support resource to start slotting in other cases. I'm not suggesting for 1 minute everyone shouldn't button down, get together and get work done. Like, I believe in that thoroughly. However, you cannot measure a developer on how successful they are based upon how many support tickets they've done. So you need to spend the time to build those numbers and work out, right, what is it we're actually measuring these people on that we're bringing in. So don't go by halves. Try not to factor people by quarters of their job or halves of their job. Leave that sort of thing for the IT companies, the MSPs that know what they're doing, because they have the training and the resources to get people to do multiple roles. If you're an in-house IT team, you probably don't have an in-house IT management team to deal with all of those complex factors when people are jumping from role to role. So deal in full heads. This head is for that job, this head is for that job. Later down the line, yes, you can split up roles, but you can't, in my opinion, start with that from the outset.